Welcome to part two of this Game Boy favorite retrospective of ours, and it's my three picks today. And I was fairly familiar with your games in terms of just what they are, but I wonder if at least two of these games you're not too familiar with overall, John. But we start, of course, with one of my favorites, Astérix.
Yeah, so that I somehow saw this coming a mile away.
Oh, did
No,
you?
yes, your love of
How?
Asterix is second only to your
It
love
knows no
of the
bounds.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, possibly even
Yeah,
backwards. I'm not sure which. I don't know which one comes first in your heart.
I don't think I put any of them first. It's like children. They just mean, as much in different
Whoa, you just
ways.
winked at us.
Uh,
So
I don't know,
this
yeah.
is a game I had never played until basically until you said go play that game, and
Oh
I have
yeah,
not
there's
played that
many
much of
reasons.
this, but
Right.
I feel like right from this title screen, you can instantly tell that, okay, there's going to be some cool tech going on because that little trick they're doing with flipping the menu in and out there,
Yeah.
that's unusual to see. And you'll see
Oh
once
yeah.
we get started here, there's some crazy stuff going on.
Yeah. This has an effect that you
All right,
like.
you ready?
Yeah,
So
I'm
this is the
ready.
only thing I know this game for. Well, and the music, but watch the backgrounds. Here we go.
It's
Look at that.
parallax.
And not just like one level of parallax.
It's like yeah.
It's multiple levels of it and overlapping parallax.
Yep.
So they're doing some sneaky tricks there to pull it off.
Fairly fairly European this
Yeah.
franchise and this Game Boy game. It was made
Uh,
by New Frontier, which was later on I think became Bit Managers, which is the company which our friend Alberto Gonzalez worked for
so
and did this
I
and
have
other
to
games.
comment on this first because I'm not going to do it this time. But
Sure.
you see down here the little this little area. I almost called it a
Yep.
platform because it looks like a platform.
It looks like
When you
it.
jump from here, I feel like the first 5 times I played this game, I would always immediately
into
fall in
it.
that darn hole because it looks like a platform.
Yeah.
But it's not. If you fall in there, you die.
Lose a life.
So,
Yep.
uh,
So,
but
but yeah, Alberto did the music and the graphics for this game.
Really?
Actually, yeah. So he actually started his career doing graphics and then picked up music out of necessity, I think, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since we discussed this game together, but I believe this was one of the first games he worked on outside of working on this MSX. He did the Altered Beast conversion for Sega
Whoa.
on the MSX before this.
was it a good conversion?
I mean, for the MSX, it's okay, I suppose.
Oh man, that's bad right there.
But I probably would pick it over the original.
It's no Space
He
Mambo,
got the-
basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no Space Mambo. Sure ain't. So, but the music is fantastic in this game. I mean,
Wait,
goes
what
without
am I-
saying with Alberto.
Okay, how do I stand on these things?
You jump on them.
Okay, yeah, I've only literally played the first like few, like 1 minute of this game just because of the parallax scrolling, but I've never played further until today.
It's a very good game. Yeah, this was, and what's interesting about this was the game I got alongside. I got the NES version, I think 6 months later.
Really?
For Christmas, but they are slightly different, but fairly similar. Same team and everything. But this was like a big multimedia event surrounding the release of a movie called The Big Fight. Sorry, which Panoramix gets crazy because it gets hit by Manir. So this game is not based on that, but it was kind of around the same time,
Right.
and they did this game, a Super Nintendo game, and the NES game. The Super Nintendo game is done by different people. Same concept,
is
but
it
different
good?
people. It's the least of my favorites of the three, but they're all three are good. And fairly faithful overall to Asterix. And that's the thing about the Asterix games. They generally are pretty good.
I mean,
I should know.
One of my favorites that I have actually played more of is the Konami one, the arcade game,
Oh, the Brawler?
which is absurdly good. Like, they basically did for Asterix what they did with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Simpsons, but on even better
better.
technology. Like,
Yeah.
the visual
It's
quality in that
GX4.
is incredible. Oh, that's the pit again. Dang it.
It is
Whatever.
certainly the pit. It's static down there.
So this is definitely this is actually my biggest complaint with this game. Playing it here is just there's a lot of issues with legibility of the level, mainly with these pits. Like they don't, it doesn't feel right. Okay, what am I?
It ain't no Mario, so to speak. But once you get into the rhythm of the game, it is fairly fun.
It's so easy
and,
those pits are awful, man. They're like death traps, literally.
That's what they're supposed to be.
But it's
But yeah, so
he has this.
but the timing and stuff is it's a little bit finicky. Certainly when you haven't played it before. That's the fun of discovering new games, kind of figuring out the timings and the small details.
This reminds me of another game I just played today for the first time. Popeye 2.
Yes, we were playing around with the Game Boy a little bit earlier, and you played Popeye 2, and I played that before. So I was familiar with it, but that's a pretty good game.
It is.
And I forget who made it. It might have been Nintendo themselves that made it, but I don't think so. Someone can correct me in the comments, as they always do. Who did Popeye 2 on the Game Boy? The most important of questions. I like this guy in the guy inside the tree stub is a fairly common gag in the comics and cartoons. And you have a French wife.
Yes.
You have lived in France. You now live in Germany, which is the kind of second hotbed of Astérix.
Yeah.
And a lot of Astérix content gets made in Germany, back then and now. So I'm kind of curious, what has your relationship to this franchise been since kind of coming to Europe?
Well, I've actually watched some Astérix and read some Astérix BDs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically thanks to you and my wife, who are both like deeply into this stuff. And
your wife loves it.
It really demonstrated to me how important Astérix is to European culture. And it's one of those properties that just had like very little exposure in North America, right?
It's really fantastic, though. The sense of adventure and just kind of like overall the action. And to us, it's also important in the sense that it was, especially in the 80s, it became a symbol of kind of, that was when Disney's sort of monopoly on animation and such started from a Western standpoint. This is before anime made its entry. And for us, I remember it became kind of like a culture icon in the sense that like it proved that not only Disney could make these blockbusters, we were getting a fantastic Astérix cartoon.
This is literally a blockbuster here. Look what I'm doing with this Abe. I'm sorry.
Yes. Good pun there. So it just, I think this is why a lot of Europeans, when you mention Astérix, it gets kind of special, and people get, I wouldn't say intense, but they get passionate about it. Was because like it was such an important kind of cultural icon here throughout Scandinavia, Germany, and France.
I feel like this is when we were getting like, I don't know, Biker Mice from Mars toys at the local McDonald's. You guys were getting Astérix.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, don't you knock Biker Mice from Mars. That's a great franchise. And that also had a great Super Nintendo game.
Oh man, Biker Mice from Mars.
I would think that you like Biker Mice from Mars just because, like, I mean, you're a car guy.
No, I did watch Biker Mice from Mars. I was into it. I watched a lot of weird
Biker Mice from Mars.
I watched a lot of weird cartoons back then. I think the weirdest one that I watched at the time, when I look back on them, like, wow, that was strange, was Little Shop. You ever?
Oh, I remember Little Shop.
Where it's like they turned that story into like, now the plant likes hip hop. Basically, it's like, oh, this is like.
It goes alongside like Teen Wolf and like RoboCop, the cartoon, and just kind of turning these franchises that, I mean, the original Little Shop of Horrors isn't like, I mean, it's an old Roger Corman movie. Yeah. So it's cheesy in its own way and fits. But I do remember that was around the time the Rick Moranis.
I say we move on because I'm having those pits are destroying me. Like
I will just say the Game Over tune is a welcome. I mean, it doesn't hurt as much to die in Astérix because the Game Over tune is very, very good.
Based on this is the most time I put into this game, I admit, and I like what they've done here, but the controls are just a little bit slippery, and those pits like they're magnetic, or they kind of draw you to it, and you just sort of like get sucked in. Like nothing else about it seems that difficult, but those pits are. I don't love those, but you know what? This game is pretty cool, I have to admit, and I should probably try to get good and play
on the
it.
Astérix. Yeah, try out the NES version as well. It's a little bit different, but it has a lot of the same layouts, and I think the controls are ever so slightly touched up on the NES version. So it could be that one is more...
Right. One thing I do want to mention about this that people probably have noticed by now is, like, unlike the 3 games I selected, this game does not run at 60 frames per second. It is 30.
Not.
And I suspect that is partially due to the whatever trickery they're using to pull off the parallax scrolling. This Game Boy has no hardware scrolling. And typically they do it per scan line, and, you know, you can kind of fake it. But this has the overlapping stuff going on, and I would love to know more about how they achieve that.
You can ask Alberto, because he was very much behind the scenes with the graphics, music, and programming on this. So, and yeah, MacAlby on Twitter, if you want to kind of reach out to him, anyone watching this, and kind of learn more about Game Boy, he still, to this day, does music composition stuff on Game Boy. So he's still very active.
He's like the Yuzo Koshiro of Europe.
He very much is in more ways than I think even he realizes. And they've become very good friends in the last few years. Cool. So I'm kind of excited about what could happen with such a friendship.
That's great.
Blossom.
But all right, let's move on to the next game, shall we?
So, you're not the only one with visual trickery on screen, John. I also have a couple of these games physically today, and I do have the boxed version of the game coming up, which is Back from the Sewers, TMNT 2. This is something I bought later, because it says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which just sounds stupid. Should be Hero.
Yes.
But I did have Hero Turtles 2 Back from the Sewers when I was a kid. I had the first game as well, Fall from the Foot Clan. I got that very early, and I liked it, but I don't think necessarily it's a great game. I think nostalgia does a lot to help Fall the Foot Clan to kind of be playable today. But this game, I do maintain, I think is a pretty fun little portable action game.
The thing about it, though, is, again, like your other choice, it runs at a lower frame rate. As you notice.
Yeah, I guess I just like 30.
Or worse. I think this is lower than 30.
Is it for?
I think this is like 20 FPS.
Wow.
And I don't know why, because I mean, Konami did a lot of stuff on the Game Boy that, I mean, Castlevania ran poorly, but most of their stuff was 60, including the third game in the TMNT series. But this game is, to me, I always felt that this and the first Turtles games on Game Boy were basically like Shinobi Light or Rolling Thunder Light. It's that concept where you're kind of just marching across the screen, taking out enemies with an almost rhythmic like attack pattern that's like, you know,
exactly.
It just feels...
I was gonna make that same point.
Yeah, right? Like that's what makes these games fun, is it's very simple.
Yeah.
But just like nailing the timing and making your way through these stages, it's fun. It feels good.
Right, because single plane beat 'em ups, I guess, in this sense. I mean, most enemies here die on either 1 to 2 hits, so it's not like a beat 'em up. But a lot of people, when they compare TMNT games, and I've seen this come up now because the Cowabunga collection, is that people kind of bring up that, you know, TMNT 2 on NES is such a great brawler, and then the Game Boy game is just this kind of simplistic belt scroller.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's this perfection of patterns and timing, and as you said, that Shinobi like kind of reflex. It's slower than that just because of I'm screwing real estate and all that. Yeah. But when you were playing this on Game Boy as a kid, this was some of the most fun I ever had. Also because of the music, which I mean, I think we don't need to mention the music on Game Boy so much because it's usually just incredible. They really pushed, the good games. They really pushed that sound hardware as far as they could. And when we'll talk more about him later on the next game. But I had the opportunity to meet with Hip Tanaka several times in my career, and every time our conversations always centered around Game Boy because he was actually quite instrumental on the hardware side.
Sound chip especially, right?
Yeah, and he's very proud of it. He's more proud of the Virtual Boy one, which he thinks is very underutilized
yeah.
and unrecognized, which is true. But we always end up talking Game Boy, and he made sure kind of that the sound hardware is very approachable and very versatile for what it was on Game Boy, and it shows.
I feel like his legacy there can be borne out with the rise of Game Boy music, where people would get the modded out Game Boys and they use those to create music.
Yeah, LSDJ.
Right? Like that says everything about it right there. It's like,
and he came back to do that himself.
Awesome.
He's released several solo albums now with original music based on various sound chips, but also the Game Boy. So he fully recognizes that legacy now and is very proud of it, which is awesome to see, because the first time I met him was like 2009, and he was not quite familiar with it yet, and I've kind of helped steer his attention to it.
Cool.
So I'll take a little bit of credit. But yeah, so Game Boy music overall, we'll talk more about it, but for this game, it's just like, it comes at a height for me of just like, man, Turtles are now family to me. Like, they're so much part of my life, and this game comes out, I can take it with me on my road trips in that summer. I remember this very much from going to Denmark on vacation with my family.
Wow, okay.
And you know, it just like is so ingrained in my DNA, this game. It's not the best Turtles game,
No, for sure.
but it's probably the one I have the best memories of in terms of just like my personal memories of it. And this section, by the way, we're now is also very much like kind of Shinobi-like, where it just like throws enemies at you and you have to have this back and forth pattern.
So there's critical games that came along throughout gaming history that I feel like ended the reign of other genres too early. And so like, you know, we always Street Fighter 2 comes along, and that kind of killed off so many other types of arcade games, I always felt, right? And the same could be true of the single plane brawler. Like when Final Fight or Double Dragon, which came first, came along, that kind of killed the interest in this type of game. But I feel like the single plane brawler action game can be really fun. I mean, not beyond the ones we mentioned, you know, Taito had the Ninja Warriors, which was good, but Thunder Fox was even better, and that's just amazing. And it's
Ninja Warriors again comes
out like that sort of style is just awesome and way underappreciated. And I do kind of blame the rise in popularity of Double Dragon and Final Fight and the types of games that brought. Nobody wanted to make, you know, single plane brawlers that much, and I guess it all kind of stems from like Spartan X and such, like, as well.
Like that would be the first one. And I mean, in the last few years, I think there's been, I mean, like any other genre, now that we're becoming of age, where we're creating our own stuff based on this, right? You had like on Dreamcast, you had Shadow Gangs recently.
Oh yeah.
Which isn't great, unfortunately, but I do think it's an interesting take. A modern take on like that Shinobi formula, and if it just had a little bit more balance to it, I would have loved it. But I do think there's, you know, especially with timing, rhythm games, you could do like a good Shinobi rhythm music type game. You know what I mean? If you kind of combine
this actually
that.
is non-single plane. This section, I forgot about this.
The skateboard.
So
one,
actually, I can kind of say that's a little bit what Hi-Fi Rush is.
Yes, I did play that this last weekend.
It's brawling combat timed to music, and it's pretty damn cool.
I think just on a single plane, though, you could do
absolutely
more with
do it on a single plane.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure someone has done it. So if anyone out there now hearing this game description is like, "Hey, man, like that exists. It's this game. Please do leave that comment there, and I'll try to see if I can see it." But like, Hi-Fi Rush. I love that game so much.
Yeah, it's quite fun.
I don't know if anyone's reviewed it on DF.
Yeah,
as of this recording. He did it? Okay. I'll have to check that out, because I mean, as much as technically it's great, it's just like mechanically
fun,
some of the most fun I've had. So
the tutorial stuff at the beginning got on my nerves a little bit, but once you get into the game proper, it's pretty awesome.
So much fun. And so is this.
Yeah.
I mean, this game, man.
It is surprisingly. I do like this game. It is satisfying to play through.
You said there was the derpy turtles, though, which they do look a little bit everything in this game looks slightly off model, and I think they tried, especially when you look at the bosses, they tried this combination of chibi looking, like everyone has a little bit bigger of a head than they probably should have. And I don't know if it's because of the Game Boy screen that they want them.
Oh, man, when I pause, so I'm trying to look at the number of pixels wide the sprite is, because I'm wondering if they wanted to make these big tall sprites, but to fit within the constraints of the sprite, they had to keep it like X number of pixels wide, and so they had to cram all this detail into a very vertical space in terms of the number of sprites used to create the characters. So I'm wondering if it's actually that. Is it like
could be
16 pixels across? I think might be 16.
So I'm seeing this through a shared screen that's smaller, so I can't count it.
No, I know.
But the dot matrix does. I'll zoom it up and I'll put a little notice on the bottom here how many actual pixels it is. They kind of went with this formula, this graphical formula, on TMNT 3 on the NES. Everyone has slightly bigger. The bosses and stuff have slightly bigger heads and stuff there as well.
But this is also like they're like profile shots, right? Like you view them directly from the side. Like there's no like angle to it. The first one did have some of that, and that was more typical, I'd say. But still, it doesn't bother me. Once you actually get into the action, it does play great. And another.
The first Game Boy game though it's fun, but it is rough.
It's that first one is from the same era of the Castlevania adventure, like the earliest Konami stuff, So their stuff got better.
It got good. Oh, so close.
Oh no, they're all. I love how this mechanic was always the thing they did, was like, well, how do we get all the turtles in there in a one-player game? Like, they get captured.
If you die, you get captured, you have to save them.
They go to jail.
And you can't save them later on. And they you could get them captured in the first NES game.
How did I take so much damage already?
I don't know, we shot you or something.
Oh, maybe it was the amount of life that he had from when I played him the first time.
Oh, you're right, probably. I didn't pay attention to the beginning.
Oh, this boss is cheap. Yeah, I'm getting destroyed.
Well, I think we've seen quite a bit of TMNT. I think most people are familiar with it. So I'm excited about the last game on my list, though, John, because it was the first Game Boy game that I got.
Wow.
And it still is actually my number one.
All right, well, let's get on to it.
So, John, in front of you now, you have Balloon Kid. This is the absolute first game I got with my Game Boy. And are you familiar with this game at all?
I'm familiar with its existence, but I have not played this.
So let me tell you a little bit about it then, and also how I kind of felt when I played it. So, this is a fairly unique platformer. You use these balloons to... Basically, it's the same as Balloon Fight on the NES and like Joust.
Isn't this called like Balloon Fight GB in Japan?
I believe it is. At least eventually with the color version coming in. But so it automatically scrolls, but you have like these, you see how it works like the balloon fight. It's the same, so you have to avoid these obstacles. And you can lose your balloons, and then you have to get on the ground and pump them up, or you can let go of your balloons with B if you want to do straight up platforming to get secrets on the platform. Whoa, look, it's fairly simple of concept.
The sky shading up there reminds me of Super Mario Land.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, this is around the same time and actually has a lot of the same people working on it, including on music, Hip Tanaka.
Why does this run at like 15 FPS though?
Oh, because I picked the game.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this is just how
I play. The frame rates have been getting increasingly worse with each game.
Yeah, I guess so. I never thought about this because on the actual DMG screen,
very ghosty.
The originals, so much ghosting, and there's you hit the flame. But yeah, this was the very first game I got, and it's become very sentimental to me because it's just like, I had so much fun with it, and the music has this wonderful like melody to it. There's slight melancholy to it because you're saving your little brother. So I always felt like this had like an urgency to it. The whole game, it scrolls automatically. You bounce around. You have to be very careful because you can die by flames.
Pretty neat.
There's some drama to it that I felt like other games didn't have. You can let go of your balloons and go to that Game Boy, by the way. There you go. It's a little bonus area for you. And every time I met Mr. Tanaka, we talked Game Boy, as I mentioned, and the very first time we met was 2009, and I actually got to spend quite a lot of time with him. And at the time, I remember he kind of was a little puzzled by me, because mostly if people met him at that point, they had always wanted to talk to him about Mother or Tetris or like these other games that he had done with more famous music. But I kept asking him about Balloon Kid, which he was just like, he had to kind of dig a little bit in his mind to remember much about it. But, you know, it's something that he had a lot of affinity for. And much like me, when I mentioned how I felt about the music having like this kind of melancholy to it, he just kind of recognized that as well. So, it's just one of those games where I sat and I played it a lot over a summer, and I've kind of come back to revisit this quite often when I pick up my Game Boy. So I guess for me, it's that kind of game.
Man, I wish I could hear the music while playing right now, but like for some reason in my imagination, I'm hearing like the music for Truxton, like the first stage.
Okay,
like
slightly different. Okay,
somehow it just feels like it just would fit this. I can't.
I'm gonna do a little part here where I'm gonna edit in footage of John playing this game with Truxton music.
Oh yeah.
You have to pump up new balloons. I think it's down and B or something.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, it's just,
or is it just down? Okay, yeah. So this game also, this is not the only version of it. So there is a Famicom version of this, believe it or not, that's called Hello Kitty World. And changes everything to Hello Kitty. It's the same game, same music even, but it uses the Sanrio licenses, so Hello Kitty. Still very good, but I think the music, there's something slightly different about it that doesn't feel as impactful to me. I think it's just the sound of it. It doesn't have the same.
Okay, I have to admit right now that even though this runs very slowly, this is fun. This plays really well.
This is real fun.
I never
it's
played
just a
this.
Different concept. Yeah, it's real good. And I have so many memories about it. I'm having trouble like pulling them because they're all basically me sitting on a Game Boy playing it, so not too interesting. But a while ago, John, you and I recorded a DF After Dark episode about us living overseas. And during that, I mentioned that one of my first trips, or first or second, I went to a place called Magfest.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I went to Magfest that time, I think it was Magfest 3, back in 2000-something. There was a band called Chromelodion that was going to play. And if you don't know them, Chromelodion mixes like Game Boy music with like industrial rock. It's fantastic. If you haven't heard of them, go on YouTube and just search up Chromelodion. If you're kind of into that. Darker version of Anamanaguchi, I guess, but before their time. But they had like a video game cover band that spawned out of that called Sprite Slowdown. And I was very excited to see it because they made original music with Chromelodion, but now they were going to do video game music with that setup. And I was like, oh, that's going to be interesting. So I went there specifically kind of to see them. And the very first game that they played was Balloon Kid. And I was just like, I had tears all over my face.
Oh, man.
Because I was just, it's one of those weird moments in life that kind of redefines you, right? Because it's like you're hearing this music you grew up with redefined. You're with all these new friends in a new place, redefining your life. And so this music has become very sentimental to me because of that moment. So yeah, Balloon Kid just keeps coming up in my life. That's kind of I don't talk about it as much as other games because it's just like
No, I noticed.
still just Balloon Kid. I don't like think it's that interesting overall, but to me it's just like a fantastic little game. Oh, you gotta pump up some balloons. You can fly on one.
Oh my god, they're going. It's going fast now.
Got a little one up there.
There we go. Yeah, this is
How do you like joust and stuff like that in
Sure.
general?
I enjoy joust.
So I mean,
I like this
it's
kind
not-
of momentum and the feel it has. Like,
yeah,
and I've played
bounce
Balloon
around,
Fight as well, so
which has the exact same
Yeah.
mechanics but on a single screen.
yeah, it's not like
setup.
this. This is like a combination of that with like a proper like side-scrolling platform game.
Yeah.
Wow, it's
There was a color version of this, and it's weird because it came out in Game Boy Color on like their download service. I don't know if it was called Nintendo Power still, or if they changed the name of it. But you know, on Super Famicom, there were a couple of games that were download only, and this had that same setup where you could download it.
like
I
the
believe.
almost released Coolie Skunk.
Yeah, something like that. I think so, or there was some other setup where it's impossible for me to at least find. So if I'm completely
Yeah,
wrong,
I know.
excuse me, but because I'm pulling it from the top of my head, but it is hard to find. But there is a Game Boy Color version called Balloon Fight GBC, I think.
Is it
called.
as good?
It's the same
Oh.
game, just with color.
Does it run smoother?
Yeah, I think it runs smoother. I was gonna say, I seem to recall that when I played it, it played somewhat differently, and I'm wondering if that's what I'm remembering now, because it's been years since I loaded
Look at those
it up.
trees in the background, by the way. I love it.
Yeah. They're kind of
I'm actually surprised that they kept that in. Oh wait, no, maybe it's sorry, it's the reverse. I would imagine the Japanese version, they're happy.
maybe.
All right, so how the heck do you fight?
I think you have to actually remove the balloons and jump on his head, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Or just bounce on his head. I forget.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's why. Look at it. I love just the sprites on this game too. Oh. It's very expressive. And this is earlier in the Game Boy's life cycle, so
1990 it said.
this does what I think Super Mario Land completely fails to do. And I like Super Mario Land 1 just fine, but I don't think it translates Mario's platforming very well to handheld format.
No.
But I think this does something different and definitely works well on
Man,
handheld
I would have
format.
loved to have seen like a 16-bit Super NES version of this.
Yeah, I mean, you do have somewhat of a Nintendo... Is it Nintendo Land that does it? Where there's like a balloon fight, kind of endless mode.
Yeah.
That has some elements of this, obviously. That's the closest I felt that we came back to this. But I would have loved if they continued this formula with a 16-bit version. And it's somewhat strange they didn't. I think this game was successful, but as I mentioned, there's the Hello Kitty Famicom version, which is strange, but it's the
I
same
feel like
game.
we need to have a showdown now between this and Sky Kid.
Sky Kid.
Balloon Kid and
Just
Sky Kid.
get all the air. Yeah, I guess so.
Oh my gosh. Wow, this is genuinely a surprise in the sense that like sometimes games just go kind of unnoticed. I was familiar with it, but somehow I just always felt it, oh, it's played as a single screen thing, and on the Game Boy that didn't seem that exciting.
Right.
You know, single screen games
Yeah,
I like, and I've grown to love them a lot more in time, but they're not that great for the Game Boy. Except for, well, it's not single screen, it's the Donkey Kong 94, but that the whole conceit there is that it's not a single screen.
Yeah,
right?
you do those first few levels and it just turns into like one of the greatest games ever made.
Actually, you know what? Donkey Kong 94, now that I play this, that feels like a continuation of the same like ethos, and like the idea behind this game is also applied to Donkey Kong 94. It's like, let's take this like simple design and make something more out of it. That seems like what they've done here. Oh no. Oh. This is pretty challenging though, but in a good way.
Yeah. but it's not that long. I think it's 6 stages or 7. Um, and it doesn't really change up much, but it stays fair. It stays balanced with its difficulty, and yeah, it's just one of those, again, perfect Game Boy games to me. Yeah, you're supposed to go into that whale. I remember.
Okay,
This
that,
feels
that
slightly
whale,
Zelda-ish
that's
to me.
pretty funny looking.
It's
that,
very
that,
simplistic.
that art.
It's pretty simplistic, but it works. Nintendo had like a whale thing, like Super Mario 2. There's whales. Ocarina of Time
course.
does the exact same concept. You go inside the whale, and here, go inside the whale.
Could that be tied in with their love of like Popeye, like sailing ocean, like big whales? I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out like
Maybe.
where all that comes from.
I mean, Popeye was big for Nintendo in the arcade days because it was like the original.
That's right, but like
breakout game for them.
They I've always, I don't know.
Sure loved it.
They love Popeye.
So does Sega, because they even made him play volleyball.
Man.
Or Technos made the volleyball on Game Gear.
Oh yeah.
I remember the first time you saw that. You were looking for a Game Gear library, and we'll do an episode like this for other consoles, like the Game Gear, because this is a lot of fun. But I remember you were looking through, and you noticed that Technos Japan had done Popeye's volleyball on Game Gear, and you could not stop laughing at just the preposterous situation that Popeye was in.
Thinking of Game Gear though, like on the last episode we looked at Mega Man 5 on the Game Boy. There was a Game Gear Mega Man game, but I think it was made by US Gold.
US Gold did that, yeah.
I mean, it could be worse, but it
combines like 4 and 5. Is it?
It feels so strange. Like it feels like a one of those like Chinese hack games, where it's like, oh, you see what this is based on, but it doesn't really feel authentic.
I always felt like if they were gonna do like another Mega Man collection, it should be Mega Man 1 and 3 on DOS and Game Gear together, because I always put them those three together. They're official, but they certainly don't belong in our timeline.
What is it with US Gold and like weird Japanese game conversions? There's
or sequels,
Strider 2. And my favorite, of course, the Amiga version of Outrun, that soundtrack and that introduction.
Oh, the opening.
It's like a horror game.
I remember that from my childhood, and I was always confused
US Gold
what that was all about.
Present.
It's insane. And yeah.
Oh,
but
man.
John, I think we've had a lot of fun, and I think I feel like I kind of made you. I converted you. I'm going to go check out. This will be part of your collection.
Yes, I think I would like to get this, and I'm going to check out the GBC version next.
Yeah, GBC, and do check out the Famicom version just to see how Hello Kitty kind of translates into this concept. It's not too bad, and plays just as
somehow
fine.
I feel like
I forget if the frame rate.
I feel like this game could translate into like a Bonk game on the PC Engine,
Bonk Balloon.
Balloon
Bonk,
or like Wonder Boy, or
It does have a slight Wonder Boy feeling to it, though, location-wise and things like this. The whale and the like tropical island and pencil land, and like it does have a balloon. Wonder Boy kind of does this kind of stuff too, so
it does.
It could have done Wonder Balloon, and it would have been just fine. I think what we're saying is that I think game companies could take the liberty to make spin-off with balloons a little bit more often.
I agree. Just not the Chinese ones floating over them.
No.
It's topical.
Don't spy on them. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this one. So
yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad that one of these games, even though it ran worse than all the others, actually converted you. So it was a downgrade in performance, but an upgrade in fun. So I'll take that trade-off.
That is a good trade-off. I can agree with that.
Yeah. So everyone watching this, if you're signed up to the Patreon, thank you so much for being signed up. We love doing these episodes, so please let us know if there's other consoles you really want us to see pick like a top 3 from. It doesn't get so obscure,
How
maybe.
about the
But
Nuon or the Jaguar CD?
yeah, let's do the new one next time. Our top 3 new one: Maryland Racing, and Tempest
The only
3000,
3
and
we
what
picked
else?
Iron Soldier 3.
Iron Soldier 3. I have that, the reprint
So
of it.
so yeah, we
So,
basically just get the 3 games on Nuon, and
all right. That's the next episode announced. But do thank you all for being signed up, and do send us messages what you want us to do on DF Play, whether it be
oh,
with me or Mark or whoever it is. John is always up for a
yep,
round of
absolutely.
good gaming. And if you're not signed up yet but watch this on the channel, do think about subscribing, because this video would have probably been out quite a few months before you check this out. So if
Yes,
you want to check out everything from the future right now, right here, sign up on the retro tier, and you can see this and everything else
that's
that we
right.
do on the retro side. So John, thanks so much for checking out my top
And thank
3.
you for recommending them.
No, I'm happy we had some fun. So thank you all, and thank you, John.